My name is Lorena. I'm a senior here at Stanford, and I am studying art practice and education. And so we're gonna get like a pretty good fusion of that today. Thank you guys so much for coming. This is like a really exciting tour for me to give. I really enjoy speaking about my work and speaking about other people's work that I really have taken a lot from and learned from. So this is going to be a really great time. Um, so welcome to this art break, The Face of Manual Labor. We will be working with Jacob Larwence, narrative, and the proletariat. So just some few announcements to start off. We are really excited to have you guys come back into the museums in person. So they will be opening to the public on April 21st at a limited capacity. And then Stanford students, faculty, and staff are actually invited to a special preview weekend, April 16th through the 18th. But of course, our virtual galleries are still available. So we have that available on the site as well. So I just wanted to speak a little bit more about myself. So like I said, my name's Lorena. I'm a senior, so I have some, mixed feelings about that. I'm pursuing an art practice. I'm doing an honors thesis in it. And I'm also doing a minor in education. And so this is my little artist statement. I'll go ahead and read it to you guys. It says, Lorena's work through various media and writing explores the complex relationship between marginalized communities in the United States and the art historical narrative. And she is interested in synthesizing avenues that may mitigate the disparity in art production and engagement. Complicating conventional views of identity and labor, her art focuses on untold, often sentimental narratives, thereby challenging art history and contributing to ongoing efforts by Black, Indigenous, and artists of color to complicate popular understanding of their intersecting identities. And so I'm pulling a lot of these themes that I think that I'm interested in are also present themselves in Jacob Larwence's work. So that's something we're gonna be exploring in this art break. So the question that I want all of you guys to kind of hold inside of yourselves as we kind of go through this art break is to really think about what the faces of manual labor are. And so we don't have to tell me, but just kind of hold that question as we kind of explore these images. So this is the first image of that we will be looking at, and it's a painting titled Construction. It's the first image of Jacob Larwence I have ever come across, and so I wanted to share this with you guys. One of the things that I've always wondered about this image is what they are building. And I think that gets to this idea of narrative implicit in a lot of Jacob Larwence's work, wondering what is going on, what precisely the construction is working towards. And so I want you guys to think about what stories you think are being told, where you might think this is taking place. And if some people want to, chat me what they think, I would love to hear it because I definitely have my own thoughts, but I'd love to have those in conversation with you guys too. So if you want to chat them in, I will read them. Yeah, so I'm seeing Josie and Kate kind of speaking on this idea of a wood shop, a workshop of some sorts. And really, to be honest, when Kate and I talked about this earlier, we did kind of get into this idea of this workspace. And the idea, and I'm so interested in hearing what you guys have to say, because this workspace to me looks like my backyard. So because my dad is a construction worker, right? And so I had this experience of having these tools kind of strewn about my backyard, all of everything presented in this image, even this decorative Yeah, this decorative object here in the corner that kind of like spirals in multiple directions. When my dad was building my home, actually, there were elements, ornate elements like this that he was like also kind of like crafting. And so when I look at this, I almost see the construction of my own home. Like I see that story kind of being like narrated here too. And so um, the wood shop element is very interesting to me. And I think that almost comes across in the triple layering going on, shown about with these three like dynamic poses, with these three men kind of like caught like mid-action, pulling, or like dust. This looks like to me, um, like he's sanding down the wood. And so that pulling action kind of going on. And but I think what we're all kind of like getting to here is collaborative work. They're kind of like building something together, existing in this like workspace of some sorts, this wood shop of some sort, in some location, and they're really creating together. Um, but I think one of the things that I'm really attracted to for sure is this individual. Like I was saying, caught mid-action in this very like intense, like powerful pose. And so I think, yeah, that contributes to this idea of narrative of these individuals, these men being engaged in laborious work. And I think that's like the story being told here too. And so I hold this piece also by Jacob Larwence as a mirror to the one before it. And so I want you guys to look at this image and in your mind kind of think about like how it was similar or different. But what I really want to hear from you guys specifically is what you learn or know about the figures. This figure right here, and this other figure over here, what you know about the figures based on any identifiable information in the image. And so we have the title, Two Builders Playing Chess, that's available to you. But I wonder if that's what you would have assumed was going on without the title. And so, yeah, if you could, again, like be so generous as sharing your thoughts and chatting your ideas as to what we know about these two figures from the image. One of the things I think about is they're playing chess here, right? Yeah, wait, so Rosemary just sent in. So there's a few chats coming actually. Yeah, so Rosemary says, one seems to be wearing a suit and tie. So maybe a worker taking a break with a boss. Yeah, I can definitely see that going on here. Suit and tie, work and boss. Kate says something that jumps out to me is the figure on the right wearing a tie. All right, so again, we're really noticing this tie here. One looks older, maybe teaching the other one how to play. That was from Meg. One looks older. I wonder, Meg, why you think one looks older? If you could send another follow-up. SNB says, the man in the suit is very restrained, holding back, both black hand and white, which mimics the pieces. Yeah, so we have the chess pieces, the color dynamic kind of iterated in the hands. Restrained, yeah, I think like posture is a very good like indicator of like openness, like an open posture as opposed to like a more restrained, like perhaps like posture, more restrained posture. Grace says, I would have guessed a builder playing chess with his wife. Oh, okay. So this is really interesting. So I'm very like interested to hear in this like perceived, one of them perceived as older, one of them perceived as a woman, perhaps. Tina says they look like ancestors, foremothers with their old-fashioned dress. This is really like beautiful, you guys. Thank you for sending in your thoughts. And so, and I think from like your messages, I can definitely see like all of you guys kind of like bringing forth your own experiences and like your own like relationship to the image. Josie says, from the last image, it looked like they were making some chess pieces. So now I'm wondering if they made chess pieces they're playing with. That's a really good way of continuing the story, Josie. Ted says, chessboard is 4x4 rather than 8x8. I don't play chess, so that's a really good thing to notice. Yeah, it's a much smaller board. And now that you mentioned the board, I'm like noticing kind of like, the repetitive patterns, kind of like almost like the board mimicked throughout the space over here on the countertops and on the ground. Rosemary is pointing out the tools in the background. Yeah, tools as props. That's something I think about as well. As like visual like aid to like the audience. Linda is saying, I really enjoyed that Lawrence has juxtaposed two different types of activities, chess that is intellectual pursuit versus one skill that's using one's hands. Yeah, so we kind of have this like the rupture of the binary here, of the binary of like, can a person who labors manually hold like intellectual pursuits? And I think Jacob Larwence is really good at like rupturing that binary of like, of course they can. Here it is like shown. SNB says, guy on the left looks older, the beard hunched over as an older person. Yeah, so that lean forward, that kind of like hunch, maybe like giving that posture kind of indicating age right over here. Tina says, I didn't see the tie, but it still makes me think of women's clothes from earlier in the century. Funny how I'm seeing women and others aren't. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And I think maybe the term builders is a gendered one. And maybe that's why we may be seeing like men, like a more like a profession more dominated by men. Ryan says, wondering the next move. Yeah, the suspension here. Maybe that like restrained pose is like the suspense kind of waiting for like the next move to happen. Meg says the body posture, sunken face, little stooped. Tina says the striking black and white hand gloves in the center of the image. Yes, so many wonderful observations. Interesting that the hammer is only totally black tool. The hammer, oh, down here or up here? If I could get clarification on that, that'd be great. Tanaya says, could the male figure be an architect? I think he definitely could, for sure. Joyce says, one of the left has lighter skin, looks like a female. Tina says, I like the array of tools, the dynamism of the workshop behind with the focus of chess play. Yes, the blueprints and abstract straps and the construction also for the disruption of the binary. And S&B says chess is still predominantly dominated by men. So that skews our interpretation. Yeah, so that's another clue in, right? So another gendered thing, gendered occasion is that the act of playing chess at S&B is like noting out. So we have like this, so many things going on in this image, right? So many different layers that I want to say are definitely like intentional, right? I think these conversations we're having is this intentional aspect to like Jacob Lawrence's work that I'm really attracted to, the ability to kind of like open this can of worms of like trying to get this message that may or may not be like deliberately communicated by Lawrence, but I think that the act of like having that engaged conversation is definitely intended. And so you may be wondering then like why I chose Jacob Larwence, and I think it is because I have this fascination with social realism and disrupting this binary between like who a laborer can be and what their internal world might look like and what their private world looks like. And so social realism was kind of like, to me, like the beginning point of that. So it was a response to the social and political turmoil and hardships of the interwar period. And that's the two world wars, so between World War I and World War II. And realism was a way of making art easily accessible and legible to the wider public. And so the subject matter included anonymous everyday workers depicted as heroic symbols of persistence. And the the aim of social realism was to call attention to the declining conditions of the poor and working classes, and to challenge the governmental and social systems which they held responsible. So I included an image here of like, maybe you know the artist Diego Rivera, prominent social realist artist. We have kind of the workers in the back. You can see the sickle over here. There's the hammer and sickle over here as well. And yeah, so we have these like anonymous workers. We even have Frida Kahlo in the center. So this is like something I'm interested in, right? And taking the idea further. So this is a quote from Jacob Larwence, and it says, "If at times my productions do not express the conventionally beautiful, there is always an effort to express the universal beauty of man's continuous struggle to lift his social position and to add dimension to his spiritual being." And so I think that's really like really hitting the nail on the head on the sanctity of like the laborers' like personal and internal world, and like their private home and private spaces, and like their but as well as like their social positioning, and like the confluence of all of these things kind of coming together and making like a whole person, I think is what Jacob Larwence is getting at. And it's like an idea that I've like deeply internalized and have like made essentially the crux of my work. And so we have these two pieces that I think like really exemplify like the disruption of the binary, the creation of a whole understanding of like of people. Rosemary says, hitting the nail on the head, very appropriate. Thank you. So I want to get into my own work because I think it's like I've learned so much from artists, other artists, Black artists especially, like Jacob Larwence. And so I've taken kind of the idea of narrative and yeah, personal narrative especially, and kind of like poured it into my own work. And so this is a painting I did of my dad, who's a construction worker. And so it's a diptych, so it's two paintings kind of coming into forming like one whole piece. And this is his shed. And so something that I want to like let you guys in on is that like one of my like favorite parts of this piece are the kind of books. So this is based off of like a photograph I took of his shed. And there were like books there. There were like a couple of books kind of like stacked on top of each other. And so I don't know if like the people who have viewed this piece have noticed that specifically. But I wanted to share that with you guys, that like in some like very deliberate ways, I too am disrupting that binary of like, and my dad is too in his lived experience. Like those were books he had in his shop, and like I decided to include them in the painting because it's true to him. Like that's his workspace, and his workspace like includes these intellectual pursuits that like I don't know if people are like picking up on, but are certainly there. And so this is kind of like a really, really bad image of my thesis. It isn't all of my thesis that I'm kind of working on right now. And so it's called Day Laborers Hard at Work, and it's a play on his other famous painting called Coal Miners Hard at Work. And so I'm kind of like, again, disrupting this idea of like labor, and also kind of thinking about these men's identities. And so this triangle, this triad, is based off of like a Google image of like Google Street View, basically. And so the way that Google Street View kind of like captures people versus these other 5 individuals who I like talked to, right? Who I engaged with, and whose permission I asked. I was like, can I use your image? Like, how would you like to present yourselves? And so I think like the idea of agency is very important as well, like affording workers agency, and like that agency like being asserted by them. And so this is like my work in progress right now. And I think it gets into again, like disrupting the binary and kind of going into the internal private sphere actually of these people's homes. And these people are like my family, right? So this is my my brother-in-law, and this is my niece, and this my niece as a baby. And so I'm kind of like exploring the way that like, yeah, the that labor kind of like infuses into gender norms, and the way that like children pick up on those gender norms, that the kind of like, and it's talking about a very specific like subculture of laborers in North Texas, which is where I'm from, where this is the style of dress, like the baseball cap, the sunglasses, and she's picking up on that. So I'm kind of like exploring a lot of things, and just to do with labor, to do with like the whole complicated like real picture of like these men, like the real complicated image of these men, basically, right? Like they are these like sanctified people that I have a lot of respect for, but I'm also privy to this complicated, and I think real and a lot more honest and a lot more respectful like duality of like these laborers that I like, yeah, that I'm eager to like express to people. And this is something that I've like definitely like learned and like taken from artists like Jacob Larwence. And so, yeah, that's the end for me, but questions from you guys? Yes, I can take questions right now if you guys have any. So I totally recommend taking like classes, like the painting classes on this campus at Stanford are 10 out of 10. So if you guys, like if there's any students in the audience, I totally recommend those. Josie said, are there any artists like Jacob Larwence? Yes, that have been similarly inspiring for your artwork. Yes. So I think actually we just had an exhibition from Jordan Castile at the Cantor. I love Jordan Castile's work. Kehinde Wiley, that's who did Obama's like presidential portrait, are also like so many like amazing like Black artists that are like deeply influential to kind of like inverting the idea, to kind of like inverting the white gaze and kind of like putting forth like Black, Indigenous, and people of color kind of at the center of their art. Brian said, have you ever looked at Jean Charlotte? I think I might have, but I will write that down. Thank you. Thank you, Rosemary. Joy says the picture of your dad was upside down. Can we see it turned around? I can't do that right now, but it is actually intentionally supposed to be turned around. And I think it was part of like this process of working where, yeah, and kind of like humanizing my dad. That sounds weird. And kind of like humanizing my dad as this like holistic person, as like a worker, as like a father, as like a spouse, as like so many things. I don't know, it kind of really complicated my view of my dad. And so I think that's also like exploring the piece. And I think that's also why it's kind of like upside down. Linda said, if the braid was not, I believe this would, with the duality of gender. If the braid was not evident in your work for your niece, I believe this work would forcibly deal with the duality of gender. Yeah, thank you, Linda. I think so too. Ted says, would you summarize your work on a, how would you summarize your work on a bumper sticker? Radically vulnerable. I really am a big fan of radically vulnerable work that really lets you into the internal world. Kate said, thank you so much for sharing your art. Can you tell us more about how you interact with the subjects of your art as you're painting them? Yes, yes. I think it's really important for me to not be an outsider, and for people to have like agency. And so I think something I'm working on next is like compensating my sitters, because in my experience, like these are people I like either know on a personal level, or people who like don't don't understand that this may be going out to a wider audience. And so I really want to pay them for for their like likeness, right? For giving me their visage, basically. And so that's something I want to work on with them and like interact with them in a way that's a lot more equal, to where like you're helping me, like I need you, like my work does not exist without you, and I want you to be compensated for that. What's in the background in your last painting? So this is a couch. It's going to be like resolved right now. This is a couch. This is a wall. They're sitting on a couch. It's like kind of like diagonal. And this is like a little hallway. Brian said epic Hapa Mexican artist from Muralist era. Thank you, Brian. Tina said, in the portrait of your father, was that attire in the second panel so beautiful? Yes, that is attire. And people have told me it looks like a jewel. So thank you, Tina. Jane said, the message of Jacob Larwence, often using appreciating the command of attention and the central niece and her observant gaze and the colors, the clay tones. Yes, so many things. Thank you. Thank you for sharing like your thoughts, Ted. Jane said, Jacob Larwence especially encouraged people of color to continue on in his classes with their art when he taught class at the University of Washington. Yes, so that's really important. Jacob Larwence has like a really like long tradition of kind of like being taught by like Black artists, and then also kind of like teaching other artists, right? Kind of like giving forth another like generation of artists to kind of continue this really important work. Thank you, SNB. Thank you guys, everyone. Yes. Yes. Yes, those were, yes. Thank you guys so much for your time. And then one more recommendation says Visa Butler. She was influenced by Jacob Larwence in her media. His works of art are gorgeous and amazing quilts based on photos. I will definitely check them out. Thank you guys. All right, thank you guys so much for your time. And we have art breaks kind of like coming up. And so like, if you enjoyed this, like we have a lot of other like really like talented guides. Come check out like what they're interested in. Like it's all amazing. So please come back again. And yeah, Mackenzie added to the chat with more information if that's what you're interested in. But thank you guys so much for coming. And I hope you guys have a great day.